because it was one of the worst books I ever read. Sorry. Hi guys, I'm Liv, and today I thought I would do a end of year book tag. I saw Sarah Curry do this video and I just really wanted to do it, and she basically had about 25 questions that I've got all written down with my answers, and she just answered them. They're all book related. I put on like a fire in the background, but you can't even see it unless I sat like this, and that is not happening. Let's get started. Some of these are like catered towards Sarah Caroli, like the fact that she likes Taylor Swift. One of the questions is, which book is the most Taylor coded book? And I've changed that to my favourite artist. So let's get started. So the first one we've got is a book that you wish you could erase from your memory and read again. So all these books, by the way, that I mentioned are books from this year alone. A book that I wish I could erase and reread. I've got a couple. I've written down 3, 2 are part of the same series, so they're technically like 1 in my head. But I had to include both, like all of these books. They were just so amazing for me this year. This one I've got is A Court of Mist and Fury and A Court of Wings and Ruin. I really loved those 2 books in the ACOTAR series. They were my favourite books, and if I could relive them I really would, because A Court of Wings and Ruin, for some reason, I already kind of knew the ending, so it wasn't a shock for me. So it was a shock, but it also wasn't, because TikTok kind of ruined it. But I wish I could go back and reread that and just completely be like flabbergasted by the whole thing, because it was such an amazing book, let's be real. And A Court of Mist and Fury, I mean, brilliant book. We love Rysand. And the second book I've mentioned is The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. Court of Mist and Fury and Court of Wings and Ruin are both by Sarah J. Maas. I loved The Nightingale. The Nightingale was an amazing book. It was a historical fiction set in World War II and set in France. And this is when France had been occupied by the Nazis. And it's based around these 2 sisters who are both going through completely different things. So we've got 2 main characters who are, their names, Isabel and Vianne. And Vianne was a mum, and she ended up having a Nazi come live with her, because in France, the Nazis who occupied there had to have homes to live in, and they lived with like French residents in this book. And then we had Isabel, who was somebody who was trying to help the enemy, and British pilots and American pilots save people from the bad guys, basically. Really amazing book, and there was nothing like that book for me, and I wish I could reread it for the first time. Second question is my favourite new character. So I did choose a couple. I picked 2 guys, a girl, and I picked a duo, so like a couple that was like my favourite. For the male characters, I picked Justin from Just for the Summer. I absolutely love Justin. Justin's character was amazing. Just for the Summer was a romance. It's the 3rd book in the World series by... who did that book series? I can't actually remember. I just thought Justin was an amazing character. He was a fully rounded character. He was amazing. He was so sweet and so helpful, and just everything that our female main character needed. Also put down someone from Love Light Farms. I put down Luca. So Luca is the male main character in Love Light Farms, and he is the love interest. He was so amazing. The Love Light Farms book is a friends to lovers book, and it's so clear that Luca has always like been in love with our main character, and it's such a beautiful story. But Luca, he is the perfect man. Everything he does is just brilliant and heartwarming. I've also put down Ada from Brutal Prince. So this is from the Brutal Birthright series, which is written by Sophie Lark. I absolutely love this series, and Ada is my favourite character. She is the main character in the 1st book, and she is hilarious. She's a firecracker of a character. This is a contemporary mafia romance. She is in this arranged marriage set up by the male heads of both of these families that are rival families, and she does not want to marry this guy, and she does everything that she can in her power whilst they're married to annoy him and piss him off, basically. And she's such a firecracker. She says what she wants, and she's just so funny. I love her. I then put a duo, which is not going to shock many people, but I had to put down Favourite and Rysand. I just thought they were brilliant, especially in A Court of Mist and Fury. Their duo is just everything, and I'd actually say A Court of Wings and Ruin really showed like their bond as a couple, but I thought that they are my favourite couple that I've read this year. There's nothing that compares to them. Most surprising book in a good way and a bad way. So this is 2 books. So I've put down my most surprising book in a good way was definitely The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. I think that The Nightingale is a book that truly gets no recognition by anybody. It is a book that no one speaks about, nobody recommends, and it was truly everything. I really loved it. I had such low expectations because like I didn't see anyone read it, and I just really wanted to read it because I love a historical fiction, and I thought, yeah, it looks good, the cover looks great. Got it, read it. It was been on my shelf for ages, like months, and I was just in shock at the book. It was absolutely brilliant. It's probably one of my favourite books to date now. I really loved it and highly would recommend. The bad book that was surprisingly bad was Powerless by Lauren Roberts. This was a fantasy, and it was kind of meant to be kind of similar to the Hunger Games, but to me it just felt like a knockoff Hunger Games. The writing was Wattpaddy, and there's a lot of repetition with descriptions. Like something would be described 3 pages later, it would be revisit again and again and again, and it just felt a bit like, God, this is so like repetition. I just hate it. And the writing felt lazy, the plot was boring, and the romance was not it for me. But it was meant to be like a young adult fantasy as well, but this wasn't for me. I just want to quickly say I'm really sorry if the lighting is ass, but if I face that way, my makeup looks atrocious. Like seriously, full on light in my face just looks terrible right now. And if I face it this way, the lighting's going to be on half of my face, so I have to face it this way with like, I've literally just got like a book light facing me, which is doing God basically nothing. Next I've got the best and most disappointing new release. I understand that question now. I read it and I was just like, what? So these are releases that have come out this year that have been the best and also the worst. So for the best, I've written down Just for the Summer. Abby Jimenez, that was her name, Abby Jimenez. Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez was a really amazing book. It was so nice. It was a romance and it was beautiful. Our 2 main characters were amazing. I loved them both, and the storyline was great. We had ties to the other books in the series. We also had a lot of things on like mental well-being in this book, and our main 2 characters were just amazing for each other. There was also like, I don't remember there being a 3rd act breakup. It was more like, I don't know, I just don't remember there being one, but I just remember the book being so brilliant and getting really emotional at it, and it was really good. I loved the ties to the first book, and great book. For the most disappointing new release, I have put down The Housemaid is Watching by Frida McFadden. This book actually did get a 2-star from me. Really bad book in my opinion. So this book was about Millie, again, who is in the Housemaid series. This was the 3rd installment of this book series, and it's like years in the future. She's got a family now and she's married and everything. There's a housemaid across the street who keeps like watching her, and the house in which there's a neighbour who recommends her maid for Millie, and she keeps snooping around in Millie's house. And there's a lot of bits and pieces that didn't really make sense to me, as in like it didn't really link to the other ones, considering Millie's a housemaid in the other 2 books, and it's all about her rescuing girls who are stuck in like abusive relationship and need to get out. This one didn't really follow that format at all. It was completely random and really poor storyline. The characters didn't feel like the characters, if you know what I mean. Like they just didn't feel like the characters that we've been reading for ages. My longest book and my shortest book. So my longest book was actually A Court of Silver Flames, and this was 757 pages. That's what it says on Goodreads. However, I remember reading 221163 or something like that. It's by Stephen King, and that I remember being like 800 and something pages, the paperback, but on Goodreads it says it's 700 and something. And the shortest book I've read is actually 40 pages long, and that is Drop Cover and Hold On, which was like a little cozy novella, cutesy rom-com book that there was like 6 of them that got released by really good romance authors, and that was like in the summertime. My most emotional book, okay, yes, I understand why I put this down. So my most emotional book, which actually got me in my feels, made me cry so much and was beautiful, was The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I absolutely adored this book. It was brilliant and it had me bawling my eyes out. I did do a video on this book. It was truly amazing, and I didn't expect much, because I always say this when I mention this book. I read this book because one of the YouTubers that I watch, she read it and she said that she hated the book. And for some reason that made me want to read it. I was like, but the back seems so good. How could you hate this book? And it was almost like a, I don't believe that it was a bad book kind of thing. So I really wanted to read it, read it, and 5-starred it. It was brilliant, and it was just everything I hoped for. It made me so emotional, and I was crying for ages. The next is the happiest book I've read, and I wrote down Pumpkin Spice Cafe by Laurie Gilmore. I had to put this book down. I read it recently. I think I read it last week. It's so festive and fall coded. It is brilliant. You have this main character, this female main character, and our male main character Logan, and I think she's called Jeannie, and they are both living in this small town. There is gossiping, there's just cozy cafes, cozy bookstores. It is so adorable. There are festivals, town meetings. It really is giving Gilmore Girls. It like stars hollow. Really, really great book. So cozy and festive. And I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of just giggling reading the whole book and cozy and in a corner with a blanket the whole time because it just felt that way. It felt like a book that you had to drink a hot chocolate to, and I did do that. It was a brilliant book and my happiest read of the year. The best series I've read. I think I've only read like 2 series this year, I'm pretty sure, or maybe 3, but my best one has to be ACOTAR. I'm so late to the ACOTAR game. I read it this year in January and I finished it all by February, I think. I really loved it. I'm next needing to read Throne of Glass, so that is next on my list. I've bought the entire series, by the way. It's literally at home on my shelf. I'm so scared to touch it because so many people have said no other fantasy will hit the same once you have read this. But I would have to say that the storytelling, the characters, everything about it was brilliant. I can understand why it's so highly rated. It's not overhyped. It is amazing. Although I do forget about Silver Flames because it was one of the worst books I ever read. Sorry. The prettiest cover I've written down is actually Stolen Air by Sophie Lark. Now, I haven't had the... Oh no, I've changed my mind on which one the prettiest cover is now. Okay, I'm not at home right now. I'm in my uni flat, so I've not got the opportunity to look through my bookshelf or anything right now. And I've just looked up at the books I've got here, and I've just realised that I've seen the book on my shelf that I thought is like my favourite cover. So I did write down Stolen Air by Sophie Lark, and I do think that's a beautiful cover, I'm not gonna lie. But I'm also kind of weighing it up between that and The Book Thief. The Book Thief cover is just so aesthetically pleasing and it is gorgeous, so I'm going to put both of them for the prettiest cover. Book with new favourite quotes. Now, I don't have any quotes specifically right now because the book is not here, it's at home, and that is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. If you want a book that you're going to tab like crazy and there are going to be so many quotes that you're going to be obsessed with, I would recommend this book highly. If you're going to start it, please tab it because it is a book that you will love to go back to just read certain quotes. It's just such a beautiful book, so many bittersweet moments, so many funny moments. It's just a beautiful, heartfelt, emotional book. The next one is my favourite authors of this year, new favourites, and I had to put down Sarah J Maas because this is the year that I have first actually seen her work, and I also had to put down Kristen Hanna, and I know I've only read one of her books, but oh my god, I'm obsessed. I love her work. I think that her storytelling is just on a different level. There's honestly nothing like Kristen Hanna's storytelling, and I am so excited because I've also got another one of her books at home on my shelf. I can't remember what it was called. It was like Firefly Lane or something, and a book about like these 2 girls who grew up together, and I just know it's going to be good because I trust in Kristen Hanna. The next is a book that you have finally read, and I have put down Love Light Farms, and this is because this book has been on my TBR for an entire year. I got this book in 2023 from my Sam, and he got me this as a present for like my birthday. I think it was like 20 books for my 20th that he got me, and I was so adamant I was going to read it at Christmas. Only got 7 pages in, and then I had to wait a whole year to read it again because it's not going to hit the same in like a different season. It has to be read in like December, and I was right. I read it and it hit amazing, can't lie. Next is a book or books I'm glad I got off my TBR, and I've got one I'm glad because I didn't like it, and one I'm glad because I'm so happy I read it. So the one I'm happy that I read is the Natural series. I've wanted to read this so bad, and I finally bought it, kept putting it off for ages, and then I finally read it. I couldn't put the series down. I did a whole video on the whole series, reading it all in like a week. It was amazing and I loved it. It was just such a nice experience. I'm so happy I read it instead of just leaving it on my shelf. Now the book that I'm glad's off my list because I hated it was Caraval. Caraval is something I was so excited to read for so long. I got it for Christmas last year and started reading it, and I can't get through the third book. I'm really struggling because the first and the second was so bad for me, but I'm glad that I've got Caraval read. I just need to get through the last one and then I can say I've read it. But I'm really not a fan of Caraval. I just think it's massively overrated, but I'm glad that it's off my TBR finally, the first book and the second book. Next is a book that should be made into a TV show slash movie, and again I'm gonna have to say The Nightingale. I just think The Nightingale is a wonderful book and the story was brilliant. Really would watch it if it was a TV show or a film. I just thought it was amazing. It really could be made into a TV show or a film. I think it would be great. Which book is your happy place book? So what was my favourite book last year? My favourite book of last year was The Things We Leave Unfinished by Rebecca Yarros. This was a historical fiction and a brilliant book. And so by my happy place book, this means Sarah Caroli's favourite book of last year. What's the equivalent this year? So my favourite book of last year was The Things We Leave Unfinished. And I'd have to say the thing that is so like The Things We Leave Unfinished for me was The Nightingale. Again, I just love this book so much. There's so much about it, and I can't believe that my favourite book, really, like one of my favourites, I read in December. Took me all year to read something that's like actually like, oh my god. And there have been great books this year, but this book has like, it takes the biscuit. It's amazing. Number 16, I've got the most Sabrina coded book. So I'm a big Sabrina Carpenter fan, and my most Sabrina book I'm actually going to say is Love Like Farms, and that might be a bit of a shock. So the reason I'm saying Love Like Farms is because when you look at Sabrina, you think cutesy, cozy. To me, I think Christmas because of like the Christmas stuff she's done recently, the nonsense Christmas stuff. And you think like adorable and sweet, and that is what you think when you look at Love Like Farms. It's a beautiful book. However, there are some spicy scenes in there, and that is Sabrina Carpenter. I definitely think so because of her Juno song and in her concerts, all the stuff she does. And that is Love Like Farms to me. Love Like Farms is just Sabrina coded because you just don't expect the spice to be there. And that is Sabrina for me. I've got a big X on number 17. Oh, the best book adaptation of the year. Don't really have one because I don't like when they turn books into films. I know I said about The Nightingale being one, but that would be cool if it was, but I don't know about book adaptations. The next one is The Unpopular Book You Loved and Vice Versa. The unpopular book that I loved was Pumpkin Spice Cafe. It's got quite a low Goodreads rating and a lot of people are like, it was mid, but I personally loved it and adored it, and it was just so cute and festive. And then the book that I didn't like was Powerless. It's a very popular book and everybody really liked it. Loads of people on TikTok are like, oh my god, you have to read it. Really wish I hadn't. I wish I had that day back that I spent reading that book. The lowest and highest rated on Goodreads. The highest rated average rating on Goodreads is A Court of Mist and Fury. I'm not even shocked at this. Of course, loads of people love this book. And the lowest rated was Drop, Cover and Hold On, which had like a 2.8 something rating, and that's insane to me. I really like that book. Favorite audiobook? Okay, I've written down one, but I'm stuck between this and another one. So I've written down Song of Achilles. I thought it was a really good audiobook and really gripped my attention. But I also think The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo was an amazing book, truly brilliant book, and the audiobook was just so fascinating. I loved it. I read the whole book audiobook, so the fact that I remember so much of the Evelyn Hugo book, like, it was a brilliant book, loved it, and the narrator was amazing. A reread of the year. It says on it a new annual reread. I'm just gonna say the book that I reread this year, and that was Gone. I really like this book. I read it when I was like 15 and I reread it now that I'm 20, and again, still loved it. It was an amazing book. Dystopian, all the adults have disappeared, and it's like powers and things. It's very dark, but amazing. Really loved it. And a new comfort book. I have written down The Pumpkin Spice Cafe. I just think it's amazing, and I can't wait to read the rest of the books. Like, I really can't wait. They're going to be so cozy, and I want to read them so bad. Now there's a bit of like a check-in at the end of this. So first question for this check-in is, what is my Goodreads looking like right now? So right now I'm 2 books behind schedule and I'm at 93 out of 100 books. My goal was 100, we'll see if we get there, but I'm at 93 books, which is insane that I've read 93 books this year. And the next question is favorite reading challenge. And I'd have to say my favorite reading challenge was reading until my Kindle dies. I just thought that video was so fun, and I literally just read like 14 books in a video, and I just kept updating you whenever my Kindle, like whatever I was reading on my Kindle, I just kept reading and reading and reading on my Kindle over and over until it finally died. And the next question is, what was my favorite video to film? And I had to put down reading TikTok hyped books. Now in this video, I think I read 3 books. One was Powerless, one was A Court of Wings and Ruin, and I can't remember the third one, but A Court of Wings and Ruin, oh my god, that was probably my favorite ACOTAR book. And reading that and like talking to you like a video diary was so much fun, because I got to actually get my opinions out as I was reading it and be like, oh my god, I wish this happened, or I hope this doesn't happen. And then later on I'd be like, oh my god, like updating you on that opinion I had, like I've changed my opinion or whatever. Like it was just so fun to actually update you on my thoughts, and that's why I love doing reading diaries. But yes, I hope you enjoyed the video. That has been my little book tag. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys soon with another video. Subscribe, like, and do all that stuff. And I hope you guys have a Merry Christmas. Bye!